everything we learn will accumulate and we'll be able to do something from 2023 and moving forward. So we have a moderator who will be coming up to lead the discussion on the future of Africa. Adekunle Adeyemo is the site reliability engineer at Google, where he works on a team that is responsible for terminating and routing incoming user requests to Google Cloud Customer Services and Production Systems, managing Google's Cloud, CDN, Cloud Armor, and Google's front-end systems. He is also the global lead of Africans at Google Employee Resource Group, where he is also a real estate investor and a poultry farmer. So please join me in welcoming Kunle to the stage as he leads us on a conversation about the future of Africa. Let's continue the clap. I know you guys have eaten now, so you should have the energy. Let's do the clap. This left side, you guys have not been clapping for me. I don't like it. I'm coming to harass all of you. Let's clap, let's clap, let's clap.
Hello, people. How many of us are excited to be here today? So we're gonna do two things, and we're gonna do it very quickly. So the first we're gonna do is for all of our panelists, and we've been sitting all day. We need to sort of exercise our body. So I want us to give them a standing ovation as I call them to the podium. And as you're standing, I want your applauses to be very loud and sound. And I have my reasons for that. So as we're clapping, we're raising hopes of those little, African boys and girls in the villages that have not heard about technology. But someday they will, and they'll be able to use it to do greater things. I remember years ago where I have no computer, and today I work as a software engineer at Google. So we're gonna stand up, and give each of our panelists a round of applause as I introduce each and every one of them. So the first person I would like to introduce as we rise on our feet and clap for those people as they come is Folarin. So Folarin is the head of startup ecosystem for Africa at Google, leading Google for Startups Accelerator Africa and Black Founders When Folarin came in, I don't know how many of us saw what happened. I needed to grab a chair so he could have a seat, and Folarin was going to take it from me. I was like, oh no, he pays my salary. So I have to give that honor to him. Welcome, Folarin. We're so glad to have you. There are a lot of things, about Folarin that if I should go on and on, we'll not be able to leave this place. And Folarin is doing an amazing job, which I'm very aware of, and I'm part of it as well. So thank you so much for honoring this gathering today. You're welcome. Thank you. The next person that I'm going to give it to now, we say the future is female, right? And we're talking about the future of Africa. So now I'd like to welcome Kate. Kate is the head of service delivery at Emergency Response Africa with over 2 decades of experience. With teams across different sectors in Africa. She holds a master's degree in anthropology, diploma in development leadership, and certificate in social sector management, and so many things that time will not permit me to be able to say to us at this particular point in time. Then I have also Damilola joining us on the stage. Another future is female. So Dami has 10 years experience working in the technology space in Africa, with most of the time spent working with technology startups in various capacities. She is the head of Platform and Networks at Ventures Platform Fund, where she heads a team focused on building and ensuring the effective delivery of expertise-driven and system-based post-investment support and value creation for the fund's portfolio components. Thank you, Damin, and we are happy to have you. The last but not the least, I have it on my phone, is Van. When I met him, we had great conversation, probably some hours ago, and I didn't even know that, he's a co-founder of Afro Bubble, which I've seen many times. So Vern is a seasonal blockchain technology and NFT expert. He's passionate about building capacity for African creatives and harnessing the potential of NFTs to revolutionize technology in Africa. So one more time, can we give them a round of applause? Thank you. The second thing we'll do very quickly before you take your seat, because you deserve this, and this is for you, that you are here present today. I know that a lot of us, we have, common struggles that we've been through as Africans, as Nigerians. But we broke barriers, and today, when you find an average Nigerian anywhere in the world, we are able to stand shoulder to shoulder with people that have all of the resources available to them. Despite our poor state of infrastructure, road, power, energy, we are still able to make a statement. I know a lot of you had to go through traffic today to be here, and you showed up. So please give yourself a round of applause. Okay, yeah, thank you. Let's dive into this. So, we want to talk about future of Africa, right? Which is, basically talking about where we want Africa to be. So I'm going to go by taking the first question, and this very first question is directed towards Van. Van, this question goes thus. So there are many subsectors, right, of tech. We have wave of fintech, right? Africa is gradually really coming up, in fintech. We have Web3 AI that can accelerate the growth of the continent. So which of these do you think is most pivotal, right? We have data that points to it that by 2030, the fintech market, from between now and 2030, will grow exponentially at about 10% rate, right? And we'll be looking at about over $230 billion market, in fintech by 2030. So how can we catch into all of this to be able to build the Africa of our dreams?
All right. Hi guys. So I think to answer the question, right? So which of this is pivotal? I believe all, right? But we have some inefficiencies towards some of these sectors, right? So one of the reasons why the fintech sector is likely successful, especially in Africa, in Nigeria as a whole, is that the banking infrastructure in Nigeria is one of the best in the world, right? So there was a whole lot of investment in banking, right, that has led to this exponential growth of Money Point, Team Apt, Piggyvest, right? These companies that have scaled, exponentially and have brought value, right? But when we're looking at the others, right, which is AI, Web3, blockchain, the infrastructure isn't necessarily there. But I also feel in terms of blockchain, which is my area, right, is that we are most likely starting at the same pace as our Western counterparts, right? So meaning that we have access to this technology. My father probably didn't have access to the internet, right? So he couldn't build the Amazon or all these companies on Fortune 500 companies. But we're getting access to the blockchain technology, Web3, right? And even AI to a large degree because there's so much information out there. So what I'm seeing here is that we can take advantage of this opportunity by being at the forefront. And in terms of payment, right, because the fintech and blockchain really just play, a very good role together, is that payments can now be less frictional. And when that happens, right, when you have an economy where money moves around easily and it's faster, it means that you can invest in infrastructure a whole lot faster. You can invest in companies no matter where you are. And that can lead to like exponential growth in these industries, right? So, and this is a term I use, right? In terms of like, the future of like Africa and how to take advantage of this, I'm bullish on the blockchain technology integrating with fintech, and who knows, AI now. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. That actually answers my question. Well, I have a quick follow-up, right? So you did say something, regarding blockchain, that we are the same like adoption rate with the Western world. Yeah, actually, yes. Let's talk a little bit about Web3. I think it was a word it was coined in sometime 2014, but then it became like very popular, a thing that everyone is jumping on, by 2021, right? So how would you say that we are like well positioned for that adoption rate, right? So, and I'm not trying to be shady here or trying to throw shades. When we look at, I remember the Junior World Cup, right? So we had Argentina played Nigeria, and you had Lionel Messi playing on the same pitch with Mikel Obi, right? And then years, apart, you can see where Messi is, right? So now we are adopting this, the Western world is adopting this, right? So how can we ensure that we are not going to be left behind, right? So when you look at also history many years ago, Malaysia and Nigeria were supposed to grow at the same rate, right? In fact, they came to Nigeria, I think they took some of our palm kernels or whatever, and today, is it Malaysia or Singapore, either of those countries? And when you look at it today, they've left us far behind. So what can we do, or do we have those mechanisms in place to be able to grow at the same rate?
So, a very, very tough question, right? And it's simply because there are some things you cannot just innovate your way around, right? Like, the first thing is leadership, right? One thing that held Nigeria and Africa back for a very long time is leadership. And leadership, they come up with policies. They come up with policies that affect innovation, that affect growth. And how do you innovate around, a CBN governor that cancels crypto, transfers within people in an industry that is growing at an exponential rate? And so, yes, what I tell builders, right, is that yes, these things exist, and we have these problems. We might not be able to innovate around them, but we can build in preparation for the opportunity to come. And what that means is that, whether you're wording it differently, you're wording what you're doing differently to really just come together with the policies present, right, is that you're just building regardless of how bad things are. And that might enable us, right, to really compete at that global level, right? Because the beauty about what we have here is that I don't need to go through the university, right, to become a blockchain engineer, right? I have YouTube. So in my own capacity, right, I can become well equipped to teach the next couple of people, all right, even build products that will affect the next couple of people. So what I look at this, right, is that we need to, like, I think, like the country manager of both said, we need to lobby and get the right people in power, right, in order for innovation to really just move at the pace it's supposed to move, right? And when we do that, right, when we fix that problem, the next thing is to sort of be, courageous, or to have the courage, right, to going to frontiers that seem ridiculously like abstract, right? And find out what type of products can we build that will really just take advantage and help like grow the African ecosystem, right? And then what we'll have is we'll have an ecosystem of relentless builders creating regardless, and building solutions that would affect like the next 1 million Africans. And I think we're lucky enough to not have to like destroy structures because we don't have infrastructure, right? So we're building on the playing field and maybe this might enable us to really compete faster because for the Western world, in order for them to really adopt cryptocurrency and things, right, they need to really look at their banking system, SWIFT, and be like, like the powers may be like, nah, this won't work. But we don't have that, right? So we can as well take advantage of the discrepancies and the lack of, for a better word, in the country, and use that adoption and fuel that passion, right, to build innovative products in like the widespread ocean, and I think like would be a par with our Western counterparts.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response. So that would take me to the next question. So you mentioned something, and this question is going to go to Damilola. You said something about one thing that we all here can agree is like one major problem that we face in Africa, which is leadership. Problem, right? So, and my question is that, how is there a way that we can leverage technology to solve this problem, right? The leadership problem is there, how do we solve it? Can we leverage technology for this?
Yes, we can. That's the short answer. Long answer would be, and it's related to your first question where you were saying which technology is pivotal. Right? You can look at our subsectors where you have fintech, agri-tech, health tech. You can look at it from technologies where you have Web3, AI, and the rest of them. One of the things, so let's leave our leaders. Another answer to that is, we can all get into leadership, but let's not go into that. The other thing is when you look at tech and you look at the different sectors, there are opportunities in key sectors, right, that can transform those sectors. One of the big things we can do, and some people already do that, is how do you help the government? How do you bring in all these technologies into government systems? So if you look at health tech, there are a couple of people that do that already. If you look at what's happening with fintech, you're creating new markets because you're leveraging the infrastructure that was there and you're building on top of that. So you have different, even agriculture, so you have different sectors where, by virtue of how slow, government around the world, they're typically slow, right? So what you want to do is, this technology, this blockchain that exists, the AI, bringing up these really good ideas, how do we change the systems from the back end, right, so that it's more efficient? Then on the front end is what technologies can we use that are easily adaptable? Because some things that people do is that they put the heavy technologies in front, for just customers. And we have different sort of levels of customers. You have people who are very pro-tech and people who don't know anything about tech. So the back end could have all the complex stuff, whereas the front end could be even as simple as anything like USSD to mobile apps, which is what you see in like Kenya when you had mobile money. Even with healthcare here as well, you have people that use USSD. In Botswana, I was speaking to a particular company that was doing a lot of things in Francophone Africa using USSD. Doesn't mean the back end is not complex. It might be complex, but when you look at the customers at the end of the day, it's like, what is much more adaptable? And then how do we then grow the technology from there, even for the end users?
Thank you for that response, Damilola. So you did mention a lot of things, but I want to take something that is key from what you said, and that will lead me to the next question that I would like Folarin to help us out with this question. You did talk about different opportunities, of course, that exist in different sectors. So the next question I want to ask is about these opportunities, and a lot of them are actually going to come. We do have data that shows that by 2030, right, Africa is going to have the largest, youngest workforce in the world, right? And also, it's been said that there's going to be about over 230 million fintech jobs by 2030. So how can we leverage on what we know now that, okay, this is likely to happen by 2030? They say if you fail to plan, you're definitely planning to fail. So how can Africa take advantage, of this?
I don't know. Finish. Okay, I think my biggest thing is this, right? When people ask this question, there's a lot of statistics we can throw around. Africa has 1.3 billion people right now. We're going to grow into a bubble of 2 billion people in a couple of years. We have X number of people that are using that will, go into the fintech markets in a few years as well. And my biggest thing is this, where is that market, right? If we have so many people, why are there pipeline issues at the moment in terms of filling jobs, in terms of filling jobs especially, right? The biggest thing is the absence of there's a pool of people, but it's not as straightforward as comparing us to the Indians and the Chinas if there's limited amounts of training for these people. So even if we're going to be 2 billion people, that's 2 billion people a problem that we will have because there's not enough solutions right now that are accommodating for upskilling them, training them, sensitizing them on technology in the first place. And without that, we will not have that pool of people to serve our market in a couple of years. Generally speaking, there's a plethora of opportunities that serve. Let me just talk about the fintech part first. I don't know what is going to be, what we're going to have in 8 years, 20, 30, 8 years from now. The Flutterwaves and Paystacks are only 7, 8 years old, right? Paystack, I think, acquired a couple of years ago, 2 years ago now. But it's actually a very nascent company, right? Nascent startup. Same for the other ones that we've seen now. The boom that we've seen and that we're experiencing now started with, the likes of Dami and a few others, with the CC Hub and the rest, only just about a decade ago, or just slightly over a decade ago. So it's very hard to predict what fintech will look like in this market in another 8 years. What I'm certain of is that, for example, that the founders that we're all aware of now, of the Paystack founders, the Flutter, any of the Piggyverse, whoever, will not, in my opinion anyway, my strong assumption, is that they won't be the same founders of these companies, or they will not work at their startups in that 8 years. They would have dropped the companies, have other people manage them, and created many other companies, and invested in many other companies. They would have started and failed many others, and created more things. That's more of what I'm looking forward to. In terms of opportunity, again, always happy to be on panels with the likes of some startup founders and others that are actually enabling the ecosystem. The 4 biggest challenges that startups face right now across the African continent based on research are, first thing is access to finance, capital. Without money, you cannot do anything. Money answers everything. Second thing is access to markets. We keep saying 1 billion, but nobody, consumer products aren't selling. B2Cs are doing the work, are performing really terribly right now, and have performed very terribly for the past couple of years. But we say 1 billion people, and we're putting a pitch there to say 200 million people in Nigeria or whatever. Why? The third thing is favorable policy. And the fourth thing is hiring and talent, right? On the money part, again, it's always great to see people that are investing in startups. It's great to see diaspora curious about what is happening in Africa. Besides the remittance that's going to supporting parents and family in terms of medical support with just upkeep, there's also opportunities to invest that money into startups, into businesses, right? That's finance, for example. In terms of markets, it's beyond just looking at the macro number of 200 million. It's looking at, okay, what is internet penetration at the moment? What is smartphone penetration at the moment? Probe these numbers, right? And you'd see that we have a fraction of that 200 million that is actually addressable. So the question should now be, okay, how do I target that fraction of a number, or how do I grow the market further to actually be closer to the 200 million ceiling? Third thing, policy. Now, luckily, we have the Nigerian Startup Act. It's no longer a bill, it's now an act. I think that is a step in the right direction. It's one thing for us to condemn and slash and bash government at the macro level, but it's more than that. At the state level, we're seeing different initiatives being set up to support startups. As Dami said, government will always be policy will always be reactive to what startups and businesses are doing. So a lot of, now, back to something Ben said as well, part of the biggest issue that we have is that we build in spite of the government. But the problem with that is that as we're building in spite of them, we're forgetting to manage up. And what managing up also looks like is sensitization, informing them of what we're actually doing and how we're building and how they can, I guess, support us. They cannot do or support what they don't know or what they don't understand. They're in their 50s, 70s, 90s, whatever, I don't know, right? And they do not understand tech. So if you don't sensitize them, how will they help? I don't know. The last thing being talent. There's a few people now supporting through mentorship, training, and all that. And there's the issue of Japa is global, of Japa. But the biggest of issues there is that it's a 7-year period it takes to upskill a developer, for example, but it's like a 1 month, it takes one month to leave the country. So it's us figuring out how to create more opportunities to actually empower developers, empower startups, train from that primary, secondary level, again, for them to be pipelined for startups by 2030.
Yeah, thank you so much, Folari. So Folari said a lot of things. I'd like to, follow up with a quick question before I pass it to Dami, then I'll go to Kate. So you said a lot of things, that I'm able to pick. You talked about how money is very important, of course, manage up, sensitize our leaders and stuff like that. And the very last thing you talked about, people that want to jump and things like that. So now we're talking about the future of Africa, right? We're talking about wanting to do great and amazing things for Africa. So who are the people that will build for Africa, right? It is us, right? But we have this, situation back here, the economic situation, of course, would force people to leave. So, it would be selfish of me to tell somebody not to go because I left 8 years ago, right? So, but how can we leverage on the fact that our people go over there, they learn all of these technologies, and how can we encourage ourselves to build? Because until we do it, we would be disenfranchised in some ways, which would bring me later on to a question on OpenAI. On the frenzy now is Chat GPT, which I'm going to ask very later on. So if we are not involved in the development, in the building, if everyone wants to jump and just want to go live a good life, which is good, but how can we bring ourselves back and say, guys, this is home. We have to do something and we have to build for ourselves.
Sorry. I don't know again, I don't know. I think so let me just 2 things. I'll just say 2 things on that. 3 things actually. The first thing is that this jackpot thing that seems prevalent is actually a privileged thing. It's actually very expensive to leave the country, to up and leave the country. It seems like it's very expensive to actually leave. To get your visa is expensive. To apply for jobs is expensive when you're in survival mode. So even if it seems like everybody's leaving, it's only a handful of the middle to upper middle class that are actually leaving the country. Right? So there's still a plethora of people, majority are in lower middle / low underserved. So there's still a lot of people that can take care of Nigeria. Nigeria will be okay if people go. That's the first thing. Second thing I'll say is that we need to be a little gracious with people that are leaving the country, right? They leave for many reasons, especially because they're in survival mode. You cannot expect them to go and after a couple of months or years, start to think about how to give back. They are only just finding their feet, figuring things out, and again, trying to make things for themselves as well. I look at the pros of a lot of things. I'm also a pessimist. But the pro of this is, they leave the country, they start off with remittance to like the families and all that in FX. That's where it starts from. These things, the indirect impact of things like people leaving the country cannot be quantified, right? Because they go on and start to earn more, they have higher purchasing power, higher spending power, higher support power, right? So they can support their families with that. The families can go on to create more jobs by employing more people, and then will further create jobs. It's a whole line of pros, right? The last part of this is that, again, I don't know, right? We need to do more in terms of training people. There's no way to leapfrog all the buzzwords that we're going to use to piggyback, leapfrog, whatever the word is, help train people faster than we can. But then so what we need to do is figure out how to train more people, or just focus on vocational training, right? So that we will actually create be job creators rather than job seekers. Now, show of hands, how many of you have side gigs? How many of you, sorry, for those that are based here in Nigeria, right? How many of you have side hustles, are currently in full-time employment and have side hustles? Anybody? No? Okay, okay, maybe employers are here. But that's the thing, right? What we need is more of that, job creators, giving them vocational training, training on enterprise entrepreneurship, so that they can create things. With that, we'll see revenue, and with that, there's less of reason to leave. But we cannot blame people that are globally competitive for leaving or feel bad that in the country.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, very quickly, Dan, because I want to ask Kate a question.
Oh, okay. Because I'm just going to say that, you know the whole Japan thing, people are living through different means. It's not just the ones we know. So they're actually like, even people in lower class too that are living as well. I do think quite a lot of people are living. But to that question, I think a lot of people need to understand that in Nigeria, the tech ecosystem, I think now we're like the leading in terms of funding coming to Africa. Nigeria is the leading country. It wasn't like that 5-6 years ago, right? And about 10 years ago, something that Valerie said is important is groups of people came together to say they wanted to be intentional about building the ecosystem. Some of these people didn't live in Nigeria, right? What we are seeing today is evidence of the work that was done earlier on in building communities, ecosystems, people talking about the likes of CC Hub and Jason, they're just quite a number of people. Sometimes we talk now and we forget all these things. But without those people creating different communities, you know, we wouldn't have what we have today. And it's going to continue evolving. Right now we have founders that are exiting companies, right? And they're investing. This wasn't happening before. We have people that are unicorns. I remember when we were still chatting about when are we going to find unicorn startups. All of those things were not happening before. So one is to appreciate that, especially in Nigeria, the ecosystem has come far. And then to be intentional about creating things that will continue to put the ecosystem on the map, right? So where are we now? You're talking about investing. If you're in diaspora and you want to invest, there are actually a lot of investment groups that you can do that. If you, wherever you are involved in the creation of new tech, you need to bring that back home. My fear is that even in this new tech discussion, we're still going to be consumers. We've been consumers even in the industry and creating and producing things. Now we're talking tech, and it almost feels like we're still going to be consumers, and that's very dangerous when you talk about technology, because data is going to be sold, and it's just a new level of colonization that we'll face. So if you are involved in the creation of new tech, you need to find ways to bring that back home as well, so that we are creating and producing, not just only consuming. Consuming is fine, but you can't continue to consume and say you want to play at the frontier. And then also be involved in ecosystem building, right?
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Kate this next question, but before I do so, I just want us once again to appreciate all our panelists here. I'm super confident, and I'm sure that every one of the panelists here, they live in Nigeria. They're doing great things. They're helping to be part of history, to build that Africa that we want to see. And to also those of us, that are back home, that are doing that, we really want to appreciate you all. And this is why, we bring TechConnect, to be able to bridge the gap between the tech diaspora and the people at home, for us to come together, rub minds together, and be able to build, a continent that we'll be proud of, a nation, that we'll be proud of as Nigerians as well. So this will take me to the next question that I want to ask Kate. So what would you say are lessons from our past, as a continent, that we should keep in mind as we move forward in building? And have we seen common barriers repeating itself? Like we're falling in the same set of pits. So what would you say about this?
Well, thank you so much. I'll jump on what Danny said last. Consumerism. We are a people who consume. We consume technology, we consume products, we consume services. And that is a pitfall, a huge pitfall for us if we want to go forward. We have to get beyond consuming and begin to produce, begin to create. That's the first thing I'll say. And another huge lesson from the past I would want to point at is our failure in leadership. We have an opportunity. Nigeria is going into election in January, February of 2023. We have an opportunity to change what we have as leadership today. If we miss that opportunity, then we are in for another roller coaster of failure and backwardness. I say this seriously because I know that it presents an opportunity for us to change everything we have said today. If there's going to be a change in the future of what we are doing in the tech world, then leadership has to be part of it. If we do not have leadership that is responsible, that can create policy environments that allow creatives, that provides for innovation, then we will be stuck in the consumer cycle where we only consume what is given to us and will not be able to speak. Because we see that, Falari said earlier on about the statistics, the numbers of young people that we are hoping by 2030 will be out there. What's the big problem is that we will have so many Africans, so many Nigerians being a great part of that number who will be employable. But will they be employable in Africa? Will they have places where they can work in Nigeria? So those are lessons I would say we are at that verge right now where we can change all of that by changing what the leadership we have seen today is, and making sure that whoever is going to come into power has the capacity and understands these changes we are talking about, understands the future we are envisaging, and are able to provide the right platforms for creatives, provide policy backings. Thank you, and thank God for the Startup Act that has been passed. But then, you know, as with every other act that has been passed in Nigeria, it will be passed. The next level is who is aware of it. How many people in this room are truly aware of the content of that act? How are we going to implement it? How do we monitor implementation? How do we ensure that the details in that act is being followed? If we do not have the right leadership, then all of those will just be paperwork that will be kept in the library for us to go and refer to. So pitfalls we must avoid. Let's change leadership. Let's become more intentional with creating solutions instead of consuming solutions.
Thank you. Let's change leadership and be intentional with our hearts. Thank you, Kate, for that response. So I want to go back to Van, right? So let's talk about like what we can consider like our biggest challenges, right? When it comes to even the adoption of AI, blockchain, and all of those things like that. Earlier on, you and I were having conversation about, the amazing things that ChatGPT, is doing or can possibly do. And I shared experience with Van. I was in a particular chart where someone asked the ChatGPT a question to make a table and give order of ranking the best ethnic group in the world, that has the best parenting, or whose children has come out really good based on how, they were raised. And I think the second on that list happens to be Nigeria, right? That, Nigerians, they know how to raise their kids and things like that. That's why Nigerians in the US, for example, are doing great. And so I saw that. And then on my own, like 1 hour later, because I wanted to give it a space of time. So 1 hour later, I went on ChatGPT and I asked exactly the same question. And this time around, the results was no longer there. So the response I got was, we cannot answer this question because it's unfair to other, ethnic groups or whatsoever. So to me, now, we have a situation where whatever algorithm that they had was able to look at whatever parameters to say, it seems these Nigerian kids, that we've seen in the Western world are doing great, right? When you go to UK, you have a lot of Nigerian medical doctors. when you go to the US, you have a lot of Nigerians that are into tech and doing amazing things, but some are apparently, maybe some people, weren't happy with that result, that, oh, this Nigerian, this African country, like, ranking second in the order of parenting. So they killed that, and now the response is, no, we cannot answer that question. So
you're saying the AI is racist?
I mean, I'm not saying, but I'm just saying, how can we be sure that on the long run, this is not going to be like, biased, or this will not disenfranchise, Africa at the end of the day?
I think like most of the speakers talked about something which was bad, which is we're consumers, right? And so when you're consumers, you're not really in the conversation of, deciding policies or deciding which data sets or like just creating the parameters that, the future of this technology will need to sort of be equitable, right? So I believe the most important thing, right, like as everybody has said, is that we become producers, right? We become the people who build stuff in order to create as much data set, right, that will favor us. I like to see like everything as somewhat like a competition, right? Because, and I'll tell you this, right, it's because I'm in the blockchain space, right? In order for me to sell high, I need to sell it to somebody, at that point. So it's literally like a competition, right? So it's important that we are also competitive when we enter this market. Like we think about our own interest. And that might sound selfish, but it's also important because, the other counterparts are thinking about their own interests, right? And so when they're going to build their product, they're going to think about what favors their people, right? So, and you become like sort of like a puppet, right? When you become the consumer for that product and you feed into their data. And you become absent-minded of the products that are being created within the Africa ecosystem, right? So participation is also very important in order to, if we're going to decide whether AI is not racist or equitable, right, is that we will have to participate. And it's a simple question here, right? A lot of people know about the blockchain technology, right? It's not going anywhere. For a fact, it's faster and cheaper to send money than any other mode of operations, right? But I'll just ask a question. How many people here have a blockchain wallet? Right, just if you have one, please just raise up your hand. Right, and if you look at that, right, that's like 20% of the room, right? And so, and if I'm gonna be honest, right, is that when the blockchain technology becomes, mass adoption, right, the other 80% would have been responsible for Nigeria not being at that same level as our Western counterparts, right? So most times when we look at our products that, we think that are so far-fetched, right, that, these people are geniuses. No, they just participate a whole lot more. That gives them data. They are able to research and come up with better products, right? It's very simple. But we have this, and maybe and this is my personal opinion, right? Because I don't want to be quoted anywhere. It's not based on data, right? It's just based on my experience. Is that Africans take care of the individual. The Western counterpart thinks about the ecosystem, right? So we are selfish to a certain degree, and that means that, we don't create good enough products that we like and we love. And that's why we end up going for, the competitor, right? So, in as much as I've talked about, not being a consumer, I think participation is also very important. The reason why Burna Boy is one of the biggest artists in the world, right, is because we participate, right? We do, the way we carry the Afro beats on our head is second to none. Frankly speaking, I don't listen to any other type of music. And I think the same should be said with our technology, with our culture, and with everything that we think will help us.
Thank you. So you've heard it. We have to participate. It's very, very important. Very quickly, please start writing your questions. You can, pass it around. Before I go into the questions from the audience, I'd like to engage Kate and Folari on this one. So I know, I've studied your profiles, I've, interacted, and I know, y'all doing amazing things, right? Influencing Africa's future in your own respective ways. So I just want to ask, what are some of your most proud accomplishments, so far, and something that you're looking forward to, to seeing, to help the continent?
Thank you so much again. And as you all know, we are Emergency Response Africa. We are a medical technology company that is changing how medical emergencies are managed. And for us, the proudest thing I'll say we have done is in 1 year, we have responded to over 1,000 emergency cases. Now, you want to wonder how that has been possible. It has been made possible by the use of our intelligent technology, where with just one call, you can get a medical dispatcher respond to you, give you phone first aid. A physical paramedic is dispatched to your location, you are treated on site and possibly transferred to a partner hospital. Now, all of this is done with a view to responding to you in less than 20 minutes. The biggest question everyone has asked us is, how are you able to do that in Lagos specifically? We have been able to manage that by building networks of paramedics across the states who can respond in very short time just by a notification on their app. And for us, that's something exciting. And we are looking forward to be able to replicate this not just across Nigeria, but also across the African states.
Yeah, thank you, Damilola. So I don't know how many of us know about what she just said. So please engage with her, find more information, get more details, the name, and make use of that service as well. That is amazing. Folari, you're taking that.
What I'm most proud of, every other month, I'm very happy, I'm extremely happy when I see startups that we've supported raise funding, create jobs, solve real problems across the African continent. I'm very happy, I'm very proud to be in a position to be bringing money from the West and giving the money out for free to startups across the African continent. That's what I'm very happy about. I am proud of it and I'm very happy about it. Happy to connect with you guys here. If you're looking for free money, let me know. I'll give it to you. And I look forward to continuing to do that.
Yeah, so, like Folari was earlier introduced, he had the startup, he's the head of startup basically at Google. So if you are here, you have that, moment of flash of a genius, right? And you have this great idea, or you're thinking about starting, the next big thing, and, you're trying to navigate that environment, or you already have a startup, and you want to pitch to somebody, you need funding, please talk to Folari, make sure he smiles. When he smiles, the money will come out, so, yeah, so at this point,
major focus on women founders, by the way, just trying to bridge the gap.
Can we give a round of applause for that? Major focus on women founders. So, ladies, let's get it. This is the opportunity. Shoot your shot. The right way. At this point, I think we are time with some questions that I have. We'll be taking questions from the audience. I do have 2 questions here with me. If we have more questions, please let's get it across to our host and they will send it up here to me. So this one, anyone can go for this. Says, do you think equity-based crowdfunding would help startups access funding in Nigeria?
By equity, so I know equity-based crowdfunding, but what's the person?
Yeah, the person is saying equity-based crowdfunding.
Okay. So I know that there are policies around that, whether or not you can actually do it that way. But what people have done is syndicates, right? So they pull in a group of HNIs or people that want to invest, and then they present companies to the syndicates. So at the moment, there are a couple of syndicates that have tried that, and that works as well. And that could be an opportunity instead. In terms of equity crowdfunding itself, I do know that there might be some, policies that may not favor it in the way that it's done in the West. But what people have been able to do to bring people together and say, whether it's investment groups or syndicates, and then they're able to invest, and it's for equity as well.
No, I wanted to share, maybe an opportunity, simply because I'm in the NFT space, right? So it's not equitable crowdfunding, right? But it's crowdfunding to a certain degree, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with NFT collections, right? And it's just like these digital artworks that there are like 10,000 of them, and you're thinking, what's this trash that people are just buying into, right? But what it does for people, right, is that for most NFT collections and collectibles, right, is that there's a business behind them. So these people come out, and here's the thing: it's not equitable. So nobody's going to take money or take equity on your company. So you can do this. So you have an idea, right? You have a structure. You have like a roadmap. You have a business plan. So you go and tell a couple of people, right? We're going to give you this digital asset, right? And it could be 10,000 of them. And say, because you own those digital assets, we're going to do an event like this, right? And every other year, we're going to host an event. And it's a paid event. It's supposed to be $1,000 per person. But because you guys are early, right, it's $100. And meaning that you guys believe in the company early enough. So I get those 10,000 people, and I show them a roadmap, right? And you really just tell them what the money is going to be used for, because that's what investment really is that you've crowdfunded 10,000 people to give you like $50 to build your startup up front, right? Maybe sometimes without an MVP, right? And that could be a very unique way for raising investment towards products you would love to launch in Nigeria, right? Or in Africa as a whole. It's worked so well for a couple of companies, right? It's literally how my company started, right? Because we were building NFT infrastructure, right, to help people launch these collections, and we needed a bit of funding, right, to really just put the technology and the concept behind it. So it could be a really good idea, right? So, and the good thing about it, right, is that it's cryptocurrency. Anybody, anywhere in the world, right, as long as they have a wallet, can fund that, can get that digital collectible. And we saw with Trump recently, right? He sold 45,000 copies of his NFT, right? And he raised like 4 million, but that's Trump, right? But it's also a very good way to raise money for whatever you're trying to do. And I implore you to do your research on it. Feel free to reach out to me, right? Is what we do as well. So, I just wanted to put that in.
Yeah, thank you very much. As we're rounding up this panel session, I just want very quickly, 3 seconds from each of our panelists, to just give us like what of advice, right? As we are here, we've listened to everything that you've said, just something very quick on how, together we can overcome some of the challenges that, Yao have mentioned. Just, one last point for everyone to go home with. Very quickly.
I'll start. Okay, we have all talked all afternoon, and we have seen the very exciting part of the things we are doing now. We have also seen the parts that are a bit scary, especially when we talked about policy. But what I will leave with every one of us this evening is keep building, keep creating. Like Ven said at the beginning, it could be that you are building a reservoir that you will tap into in the future when the opportunity presents. So keep building.
Thank you. Keep building. Who wants to go next? Valari.
I'm going to say the exact opposite. Do not build. Steal. Go to the West and look at what they're doing and just steal it and bring it here. Just do that. Don't reinvent the wheel. Finish.
Do not reinvent the wheel. Look at what is being done over there, and let's come and do it here, as well. Dami.
So I would say, I think for a lot of people here, be connected to what's happening on ground, which is, this is part of it. But there are people that are really building stuff, and people that are stealing stuff. And over the years in the ecosystem, they've done really great work. And I think if you want to add to that, and what Polari is saying is don't reinvent the wheel. You can be part of what people are building here. If it's completely new, then you can, share that as well, like people did a few years ago to get us to where we are right now. So connect to people on the ground and join forces, if it's already being done. And if it's new, then, share it.
Yeah, partnership, connect with people. I'm sure, we've met with amazing people during the networking section. Keep connecting with people, keep building partnership. Van?
I agree with everybody, right? So I think they summarize it all. I think what I learned, right, because I'm in a decentralized world, right? So meaning that it's community-based. And the only reason we grew that fast, right, or we got to where we were is because, we're leveraging on the community and we're collaborating. So collaborate. Reach out to people, drop your shame, tell them how far I need help. How we go run out, right? It's very important. Humility is very important in business. It will take you further than your arrogance and your ego will ever take you. So know how to talk to people, right, and be honest, right, to a certain degree. And I think lastly, right, is realizing that, in life, everything is just make-believe, right? Nobody is really smarter than you are. So don't think for a second that whatever you're doing doesn't make sense. Because even the guy who's ahead of you is just a little bit more confident, right? And sometimes the bubble bursts, like we saw with Sam Bankman-Friedman, right? Poster boy seemed really smart, but at the end of the day, he threw a whole lot of people's money, right? Tens of billions. And I think a lot of people in this room are smarter than Sam, right? And they'll do better with that money. So yeah, believe in yourself, man. Believe in yourself.
Thank you. Believe in yourself, collaborate. So please, at this point, can we give a round of applause to all of the panelists? Thank you so much.